Well, on the topic of family, I'd like to introduce someone who's not only part of my year course family, not only part of my Section 3 family, but part of my actual family. From Knoxville, Tennessee, sharing his year in Israel, my cousin Eddy.
It's a hard act to follow. I'll try. During high school, my favorite teacher was an old history teacher named Dr. Banker. On the last day of school, I went to say goodbye to him since I would be heading to Israel within a couple weeks. Well, Dr. Banker, I'm heading to Israel and I just want to say how much I loved your class. Thank you so much. To which he replied, "Don't let the suicide bombers get you over there." I was floored by this reaction. I assumed he would have had some words of wisdom that would have inspired me into action. But it turns out he was as ignorant as anyone else in Webb School of Knoxville, Tennessee. No one could point to Israel on a map, nor could they say anything that they hadn't heard about Israel from the southern biased media. People would come up to me and ask, "Do they have cars there, or is it just camel-based transportation?" It was hard for me to understand the magnitude of this ignorance. During the Foreign Ministry's David Project seminar, we saw a video in which a group of people imagined they were looking into houses that would represent different countries. When looking into the House of Italy, they imagined old people playing cards and bottles of wine, and everyone got the feeling that if given the choice, they would never leave. Yet while looking into the House of Israel, people only imagined concrete and xenophobic Orthodox families. Yet while I've been here, I've hardly noticed the supposed warfare around me. Yes, we get these mass year course texts that say, "Don't go near Beersheba because there was a suspicious object." But contrary to what the Western media portrays, there aren't suicide bombers or rockets flying over our heads every day. Contrary to popular belief, I feel safer here in Israel rather than in America. Israel has nurtured me for the past 9 months, and it really feels like this land is my home. I have had so many experiences that cannot be comprehended by my friends back in America. I can imagine talking to my friend David about his year in college compared to my year in Israel, and there would be hardly any comparisons. He would probably tell me about all the beer he had over the year, or how great his friends in his fraternity are, or even what kind of classes he took. I can just imagine my reactions. Sure, I drank beer here, but who cares? Fraternity friends? I have made friends in Israel that will stick with me the rest of my life. I expect them to be at my wedding and in my kids' lives until the end. Classes? I've taken Hebrew classes, history classes, art classes, but have you taken shooting lessons? Have you ever taken skydiving instruction? In addition to these extraordinary lessons I have taken, I have also learned fundamental lessons about myself. I've learned how independent I can be and how much I can take without breaking down. How to be a good listener, how to love, how to accommodate, how to be a good friend. My year course experience has been full of incredible instances that have ultimately changed me for the better. Only a handful of people on year course can say that they were in army uniforms on the actual army base when news that the prodigal son, Gilad Shalit, would be returned. An even smaller group can say that they saw the respective splendors of Paris, Prague, Morocco, and Ethiopia. An even smaller group than that can say that they jumped out of an airplane at 14,000 feet. An even smaller group than that can say that they worked at Ammunition Hill as tour guides. I know each and every one of us can say that we have had a multitude of experiences that are both meaningful and unique, such as hiking throughout Israel or volunteering for MATA. We have had so many experiences that will ultimately define us, yet at the same time, it will separate us from others we meet along the road. We will be older than those we meet next year, and we will be richer in experiences. For many of those kids, it will be the first time leaving home for an extended amount of time. However, for us, it will be nothing new. Don't get me wrong, there are things about home that I miss. such as a favorite pizza place, my dog Rafi, or Costco. Yet at the same time, I can't bear to leave Israel because I will leave this whole lifestyle behind. No more taxis, no more shopping in the shuk, no more perfect, no more cats wandering into our apartment and giving birth in our suitcases. But more importantly, we won't have the melting pot of cultures that Israel provides. I remember one of my favorite things about our apartment in Arad was that every Friday you could hear the synagogue playing Lecha Dodi. It was such a shock in the beginning of the year, and I don't think I'll forget hearing it for the rest of my life. I know when I get home, my parents are going to ask me, how was it? How was what? The flight home? Be more specific. It cannot come close to what this year was to me. I am at the end of the experience that will inevitably mold me into the person that I am supposed to become. I know that these memories, lessons, and experiences will help me raise my kids so that they too can experience Israel in its fullest. I hope you all know how much you mean to me. I love you all and wish you all the best in your endeavors. B'tei Avon, friends. B'tei Avon.